Supporters of such a system live on average 10–15 years longer. Now I am absolutely convinced that I will live to see my 100th birthday, said cardiac surgeon Ellsworth Wareham about the principle of health discovered at the operating table. At the age of 95, I made the decision to end my surgical career and stopped performing operations, despite the persistent requests of colleagues to stay. This decision was not related to age, since my heart and body remained in excellent shape. I decided to devote more time to my loved ones and to do what brings me true pleasure, Ellsworth Wareham said in an interview. In the same interview, Wareham confidently declared that he would live to be 100 years old. Such a statement might have seemed overly self-confident, but he believed in his strength, and indeed, he lived to be 104 and throughout his life shared the secrets of longevity. About many hearts. When Ellsworth Wareham turned 90, he was visited by journalists who found him working in the garden. He was setting up a new fence. To build this fence, I need to dig 70-centimeter holes, install posts, and pour them with concrete. I hope to finish this work in a few days, because ahead, I have assisting in an operation as a cardiac surgeon. He shared his plans. Wareham was one of the first specialists to begin performing open-heart surgeries and dedicated more than 50 years to it. He performed several operations daily, some of which could last up to 6 hours. Even after Wareham ceased to be chief surgeon, he continued to train young specialists. Until the age of 95, he regularly came to the operating room to help his colleagues. It is interesting that Wareham discovered the path to health precisely during his work. Studying the condition of patients after surgery, I noticed that those who follow a plant-based diet have arteries that remain clean and smooth. And in people who prefer animal food, cholesterol and calcium deposits are often found in their arteries. Wareham shared his observations. He also noticed that many patients lost limbs due to vascular problems. To avoid a similar fate, at the age of 50, he completely reconsidered his diet. Until the last days of his life, Ellsworth Wareham was convinced that changing his diet allowed him to preserve his health. At the age of 98, he claimed that he felt as if he were 20. His joints were fine, his coordination remained good and strong. At 99, he continued to drive and care for the garden. "If I have any health problems, I am not aware of them," he joked. During my career, I have operated on many hearts. Several years ago, I traveled to Asia to perform open-heart surgeries. I noticed that the local population suffers from different diseases. Most of our patients had congenital heart defects, whereas ischemic disease, so common in developed countries, was rare. This is related to the fact that residents of these regions mostly adhere to a plant-based diet, said cardiac surgeon Ellsworth Wareham. The eminent cardiac surgeon claimed that supporters of his nutrition system live 10 to 15 years longer. Despite his love of eating well and abundantly, he strictly adhered to a diet consisting of only 2 meals a day, in the morning and around 4 p.m. Every morning, I begin with a large portion of whole grain flakes, which I eat with soy milk. Breakfast also includes many fruits and a handful of nuts. I add to this whole grain toasts with nut butter and drink a glass of freshly squeezed orange juice, Wareham shared. His second meal generally consisted of a plentiful portion of beans, raw vegetables, and a mandatory handful of nuts. Walnuts are often considered the most beneficial, but I prefer almonds and peanuts. Usually people are advised to eat nuts raw, but I don't mind sometimes eating salted peanuts. I excluded white sugar long ago, preferring to get it from fruits and dried fruits, explained the cardiac surgeon. The choice of drinks was no less important for Wareham. In his mature years, he drank exclusively water and orange juice, strictly monitoring the amount he consumed. Every day, I try to drink at least glasses of water. I am convinced that this helps me maintain a normal weight and health. In the morning, I start with 2 glasses of water, and try to drink as much as possible in the first half of the day, because later I may forget due to work. If I pass by a drinking fountain, I always stop to take a drink. Wareham shared his habits. The cardiac surgeon was convinced that consuming animal products, apart from mother's milk, is not a natural human need, but rather a habit. He gave this example. If a person is accustomed to heavily salted food, unsalted food will seem bland. But if one gradually reduces the amount of salt, it will cease to be necessary. In his opinion, any dietary habit can be changed in 3 months. I grew up in a farming family where meat and milk were the main foods on the table, and I was used to such food since childhood. But after 50, I decided to change my diet, focusing on whole grains, beans, and nuts. Sometimes I include in my diet small portions of dairy products, eggs, or salmon. Thanks to these changes, I feel excellent. And now I am certain that I will live to be 100, said Wareham. Ellsworth Wareham was not just a cardiac surgeon. He believed that health directly depends on what we eat and how we live. He firmly believed that proper nutrition and a healthy lifestyle can extend life by decades. Even minimal changes in diet, in his opinion, can significantly improve health and increase life expectancy. Wareham was living proof of his convictions, remaining active and full of strength to a very old age. As long as I am healthy, I am young, no matter how many years I have lived. The secret of longevity of the great cardiac surgeon Michael DeBakey, thanks to which his heart worked like a clock and his vessels were as clear as glass. Michael DeBakey, the famous cardiac surgeon, believed that the key to a strong heart and longevity was regular walking. He strongly recommended devoting at least 30 minutes a day to walking, combining a slow pace with a brisk one for maximum effect. His daily routine was very strict. He rose at 4 a.m. His morning exercises included pull-ups and bends, each of which he repeated 15 times. An hour after getting up, he went to work, preferring to walk. Returning home, he began breakfast. The doctor did not follow strict diets, but he completely excluded 2 products from his diet: butter and fatty meat. Cook food without oil, bake it or steam it, and add more vegetables to your diet. Excluding butter prolongs the life of your heart by 5 to 7 years, DeBakey claimed. As for his food preferences, for breakfast, the doctor usually ate cottage cheese or whole grain porridge, washing it down with black tea. For lunch, he most often had bean soup or baked fish, adding raw vegetables. DeBakey divided his dinner into 2 parts. He ate one in the evening and left the other for the morning. After breakfast, Michael devoted about an hour to reading scientific literature. By morning, he was ready for work at the operating table. Michael DeBakey, a renowned cardiac surgeon, claimed that the real enemy of the heart is not cholesterol, but stress, from which one must learn to free oneself wisely. It is important to be able to deal with stress properly. Many choose strong drinks for this, not realizing that in large doses they can cause a heart attack. It is better to find other ways to relax. Go to the theater. Go out into nature. Simply swim, DeBakey shared. He himself also faced stress and found relief in comedies, believing that laughter is the best medicine. Avoid boredom and excessive use of butter, he advised. The long and active life of Michael DeBakey lasted until the age of 97. Only then, as he said, did his body begin to fail in ways that could no longer be corrected. Old age is a disease. I remain young regardless of age, said the doctor. At the age of 97, he wrote a will, preparing for the inevitable. However, his relatives, finding him unconscious, decided to operate. When I woke up, it seemed to me that I had already died and was in the afterlife. But the hospitals around were so modern that I thought, is the afterlife really arranged like this? He recalled. Recovery was long, and he could no longer afford his usual walks. often saying that his time was running out. However, the doctor did not fear death. Rather, he was curious about what awaited him next. He believed in the existence of the soul and the afterlife, about which he often heard from patients he had brought back to life. Write in the comments what you think about the advice of the cardiac surgeon and whether you consider it useful. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so as not to miss anything. Wishing everyone kindness and happiness.